Marsh Pod. We're recording this late Sunday afternoon. Bills-Chiefs is not yet complete, so we don't quite know, so we're not going to talk about that. I say that because we're going to talk a little NFL today. We're going to talk a little conspiracy theories, and we're going to talk a little bit SWBA, but we're going to start with Detroit, and what an incredible moment for the city of Detroit, Detroit Lions, the organization, the fans. Let's get this one thing straight. The Lions did not win the trade. Whatever happens this season does not mean that the Lions outright won the trade of Matthew Stafford. The Rams got the ring, man. The Rams got the ring. That's their win of the trade. This could draw even. It's getting closer to a win-win, but the Lions will never be the winners of that trade because the Rams already have a title, and whatever comes next for Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams, they were supposed to be written off this season. They had to win just to get into the playoffs, and they pushed Detroit when they got there. That is a very serious team moving forward. If they can try to find ways to continue to patchwork that, they've got a running back. They've still got offensive weapons. There's a long road, but that's not what we're talking about. The Detroit Lions are finally relevant for the right reasons. And as you watch that game against Tampa Bay, you start to realize, now there's no guarantees in the NFL, especially. The NBA has a little bit longer windows for the top teams and the second-tier top teams, but the NFL, man, it is a ruthless arena. I mean, you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars back when they made the AFC Championship game in 2018, I believe it was. There was nobody could sit there and say this team wasn't going to be phenomenal for the next 4 or 5 years. And look what happens. It tears apart. Their defense gets traded away bit by bit because Tom Coughlin eroded that organization from the inside. But the Detroit Lions, as you watch that game against Tampa, you start to realize all the incredible pieces that they have that you can look at and conceivably believe that this team could hang around and maybe be the cream of the crop in the NFC North, which is saying a lot, over the next 2 to 3 years. You've got Jared Goff playing at a top 10 QB rate. Now, is he pulling a Joe Flacco here? I don't know. I wouldn't say that. He's looked really good over these last 2 years. And it's continued when he was in St. Louis, when he was in Los Angeles, the continual cover was, well, it's Sean McVay, man. Sean McVay makes this guy who he is. Maybe he got better because he has looked better. He went to the Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. He took the Rams to the Super Bowl with Sean McVay. Now, granted, their offense fell apart against Bill Belichick in maybe the most boring Super Bowl that we've had, that 13-3 debacle, but he got there. And so to think this guy was a write-off, I think was always going to be foolish. He was always going to have a floor of Kirk Cousins. He's elevating above that. He's a great piece that you sit there and you feel confident. And the Lions clearly do. We have a guy that we can trust to make big throws when we needed him to, and he did that against Tampa Bay. He did that in the loss to the Cowboys, and he did that in their opening round win over the Rams. But he's not all they've got. If you look at, they've got Sam Laporta, who might be a top 5 tight end by next season, if he's not already there, who's a rookie. You've got Jahmyr Gibbs, who is a phenomenal athlete out of the backfield. He's very Travis Etienne, he's very Christian McCaffrey-like in that you can spread him out, you can put him in the backfield, you've got to get him 15 to 20 touches a game, and he's going to impact the football game, and he did that. Then you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a number 1 wide receiver. He's the guy you go to down the stretch. When you have players and difference makers at those 3 positions at the magnitude that the Lions do, when you fill in a good offensive line, that offense looks like it has staying power. But that's not why they should be the cream of the crop, because you look on the other side. Aiden Hutchinson, my goodness, Hayden Hutchinson, absolutely phenomenal. Branch, as a rookie, was having a phenomenal season, and he comes up with some big plays for the Lions today. This is a Lions team that has a lot of really talented difference makers at positions of difference-making ability. You need an elite player on both sides of the ball at 3 different levels. At the running game, at the passing game, and in the intermediary. And they've got that with Gibbs, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you've got that with Laporta. On the defensive end, you need an elite pass rusher, you need an elite guy in the secondary, and somebody at the middle linebacker or kind of mid-tier lane. They've got the corner, and they've got the pressure up front. Detroit is legitimate, and they've got a coach that gives me Mike Tomlin vibes, right? He's got the locker room. He doesn't sit there and own the locker room like a guy like Sean McVay, like not Josh McDaniels, like Kyle Shanahan, like Bill Belichick. They own it because of their immense knowledge of the game. And that's not to say Campbell doesn't have that. But what Dan Campbell does is he has the personality of the locker room, and that's what Mike Tomlin had. I mean, look, his Air Force One, Black AF1 gift to that team. That shows that he is there for those guys. He walks out of that locker room or out of that press conference when the organization is maybe questioning if he's coming back, and you've got guys immediately coming to his defense. Mike Tomlin has that locker room. Dan Campbell has the Detroit locker room. He's surrounded himself with great football minds. That's not, again, to say that he's not a good one, but he's not in the Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniels umbrella. He's in the, I'm a dog, I got dogs in here, and we're going to fight for one another. Detroit is well positioned. And the NFC North is not going to be easy. Jordan Love is turning a corner, and he most certainly did that at the end of the year. The Packers have to feel like with their head coach and their quarterback combination, they can stick around. The Bears have an important decision to make. They could be getting an elite generational quarterback in the door any second now. And if they do that, that's three teams in the North that you have to feel like that's a battle to get out of there. And I still think the Lions are the best of that bunch. Let's stay in the NFL. Let's talk conspiracy theories. The big one, I'll mix and mingle on conspiracies, right? I'll mix and mingle. I'm not a 100% one way. I'm not 100% the other. Let's get it out the door. The earth is not flat. Let's just come to that conclusion. But moving on, the big conspiracy around the NFL right now is that the NFL script has leaked because the color combinations of the two teams in the Super Bowl for like the last 3 years has been consistent. And this year it's red and it's purple. So Niners and Ravens is the automatic go-to. Now, first off, I can't confirm it's purple. As a color-blind man myself, I don't know. It looked kind of blue to me. So take that with what you will. But here's the thing with this whole script and conspiracy. The NFL's really dove into the script, right? The script is leaked, and they really had a lot of fun with that this past offseason and into this year. But the problem is that if the NFL was scripted, and I'm not a believer that it is. I think that's unbelievable to expect people, kids in many cases, and then people in their 20s to 30s, to be suddenly going from being an elite football player to now playing the role of a award-winning actor, because that's what they essentially have to do. That's what we're claiming, that these players, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Patrick Mahomes, all of them are suddenly award-winning actors, the Emmy award-winning actors, because they can so perfectly do all the things they do. That's not happening. But if the NFL script was really leaked, you wouldn't want to telltale the sign this easily, right? It's why M. Night Shyamalan had a dip in his creative directing career, because people started looking for his twists, right? It was incredible. Sixth Sense and Signs. Those were incredible twists. But then he started falling off because he tried to twist too hard. He tried to catch you off guard with something, and it just became more telegraphed. So if the NFL, in fact, did script this, their best move would be not to have the Niners and the Ravens end up in the Super Bowl, because then people would actually start believing it's fixed beyond what it already is believed to be. Again, I'm not on that side. I'm not advocating for that. But from a pure storytelling, creative situation, the NFL needs to have some form of unpredictability. And if people can suddenly start gleaming or believe to have gleamed this, the right move would be to not have that make our NBA or our NFL Super Bowl. It would not be them, because they would want you to think this doesn't happen, which means it probably will. And then lastly, SWBA, Pascal Siakam traded to the Indiana Pacers. I love this deal. They gave up, I think, 2 firsts, and then a swap. The Pacers did. They gave up Bruce Brown, who was on a fake 2-year deal. He's owed $20 million this year. It was a $45 million. Second year is team option, which tells you all you need to know. It's a great soundbite that he signed a 2 for $45. He signed a 1 for $22, or whatever that first year is. But I love this for the Pacers. Why? Because the Pacers have no serious way to getting another star on that team. Look, we talk and we hear so much about the Philadelphia 76ers trying to pave the pathway for cap space this coming summer. They could make some moves. They could go get a star. First off, what star are they getting? None of the players out there are realistically. Paul George isn't leaving. He might be your best one. Pascal Siakam is obviously not going there now. The cap space is so overrated in the NFL or in the NBA because it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter like it did when LeBron James and Kevin Durant were entering free agency or Kawhi Leonard. It doesn't. What matters is if you have contracts on your roster that you can trade for the big players, if you have the trade assets, the draft picks. The Pacers weren't going to be attracting anybody, even if they had cap space. So for them to be able to go out and get an all-NBA caliber forward, they were never going to draft that with where they're sitting at right now because they never were going to be picking high enough. Tyrese Halliburton is already an all-star. He's probably, well, he won't be this year because he's probably going to miss too many games, but he's probably an all-NBA point guard at this point in his career. You needed another piece, and Pascal Siakam is the great way to get that. He's probably going to be an all-NBA forward this year. Not necessarily because he's talented because he's so good. He's good enough, but because there's probably going to be the 65 game rule that's probably going to take out some guys like Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, all of them could fall off and not hit the Kawhi Leonard could get hurt, Paul George could get hurt, and that opens up the pathway for Siakam. But he's 29, and I think there continues to be this perception that is rooted in 80s, 90s, 2000s, is that when you turn 30, your prime is over. Maybe this is speaking to someone on the verge of turning 30. But if you look at the stars of today's game, the prime doesn't end when you turn 30. LeBron James is 38. Steph Curry is 34. Kawhi Leonard is in his early 30s. You can reasonably assume that Siakam probably has until 33 or 34, so 4 to 5 seasons of elite to all-star caliber basketball left in him. And he's about 6 years older than Halliburton. That will be plenty of time to have plenty of bites at the apple, if you will. He's not falling off a cliff when he turns 31. Look at what DeMar DeRozan has been doing in his early 30s. That was supposed to be a death sentence when he signed with Chicago. He might be the best player available on the open market this summer and during this trade deadline because of how well he's been playing. They'll need to remain good, and they have been, but this is what kicks off the clock for Indiana. Now you are an all-in chips to the middle. You can still go out and get another piece. They probably should. You could move a guy like Buddy Hield. You could attach Benedict Mathurin and whatever first you can get for any of the next stars that come available. But this isn't a move for Indiana that makes them a contender now. It makes them a contender next season and the year after, where you get another ramp-up of Tyrese Halliburton. Now you will probably start to see those those valuable role players that, like Bruce Brown was, that want to sign for teams that are contenders, like Jeff Green. Jeff Green doesn't change your team. He doesn't change your ceiling drastically. He doesn't make you a title contender in his own right. But he's the type of guy that you put onto a roster and say, he's our 6th man, he's our 7th man. And if that's your floor, that's the lowest talented player on your roster, you are now better equipped to make an NBA championship run. It's what made the Golden State Warriors so incredible. It's what made the Toronto Raptors better than Golden State in 2019. Their bench was better, and I think you could see the time start to shift for Indiana, where now players are going to be more interested. Those fringe role players, maybe they're a starter, maybe they're a 6th man, but they now are saying, I can go get the minimum, the vet minimum, the mid-level exception for Indiana, and I know I've got a shot to potentially win a championship. That's not this season, but it's quickly becoming a possibility in the next 2 to 3. All right, we got some broadcasted games this week. Make sure you're tuning in, of course, over on SimWorld TV. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Do not miss anything from SimWorld TV. And, hey, we'll be back here on Monday. Catch you then.